Hello and welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I got to get my Instagram going. I'm figuring out the technology and it's been slow going. Here it is. Okay, here we are live on Instagram as well. Once again, welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And why are we here? Well, of course, we are here to discuss mind-body issues. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. I had 8 years of chronic back pain and got rid of it with mind-body understanding. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. I then figured out all kinds of things about other things that I needed to do to manage symptoms and why certain things worked versus didn't. I've been studying this ever since. It's been well over 12 years, I think close to 13 now. And I understand a lot about what you guys need to do to get these symptoms under control and even just to understand what it is that they're doing. So I'm looking forward to talking with you about these things. I know, though, that it's incredibly important to get your questions answered because here's the thing. If you don't get your questions answered, you continue to think the same things. And if you think the same things, it becomes real in the body. That's what mind-body experience is. Whatever goes on up here gets channeled right down into the body. And anything your body can do for physical reasons, it can do for mind-body reasons. So we really need to know what this is all about. My mind has been totally blown by this over the years as I've come to understand just how far this goes, but not only just how far this goes, also just how far it goes that other people don't understand this. That was a huge eye-opener for me. I grew up thinking that doctors really knew what they're doing, and they do in some capacity. I'm not saying this to malign doctors, but they don't know certain things. And that was a total shock to me. Fortunately, they are starting to catch on, but we still have a long way to go. So we have lots of discussions to have. Some of that happens here. Some of it is going to center around my book, which is about a month away from being totally finished. I've been making more and more progress on that very last edit, and I'll keep you posted. But what we're going to talk about today is my column system and how to think about your symptoms. So why is it called the column system? Well, when I first started working with people after I got better, I would have people who came to see me divide a piece of paper into 3 columns. And why did I do that? Because there are 3 main reasons that we have mind-body symptoms. And these columns each represent one of those 3 reasons. If we can address those reasons, the symptoms go away. So we're going to do a brief little review of that, and then we'll get into questions. The emotions column is very similar to what Dr. Sarno said. Dr. John Sarno is the doctor, the MD from NYU, who really got me out of all the trouble and started me out on this path of understanding. He was a fantastic man and did an amazing job as a clinician. And one thing he understood is that feelings that we don't want to know about can get pushed out of our awareness or kept out of our awareness in a distraction format by symptoms. Nothing is more distracting than having these terrible symptoms. We don't want to have them. We can hardly think about anything else. So you don't pay attention to those emotions. Now, the good news is if you start to pay attention to those emotions, you can get rid of some of these symptoms. Now, my system has kind of codified what you're looking for. When are there certain things that are causing these symptoms or not? So when are the emotions causing the symptoms? That is for the onset and uptick in symptoms. The very beginning of the symptoms, or if you've had a symptom all along or a lot of the time, and then it suddenly goes up. That shows you there's something emotional going on there in almost all cases. I can get into some of the details about why it can sometimes differ, but not usually. Usually an onset or an uptick is going to be an emotions column event. The only exception being if you had an environmental experience that got you doubting, that can start things too. That's a different process, so I can get into the details of that. The doubt column is something that I found really partially by myself, though it was at a suggestion that Sarno made, which is that you have to accept the diagnosis to get better from mind-body symptoms. You have to really believe that's what you have. And of course, you can't fake that. So you need the science and the logic. That's what he presents. That's what I present. But what I found is that if my questions weren't answered, my thoughts stayed in the same place. It's just what I said at the top of this podcast. If your thoughts stay in the same place, then your physiology stays in the same place. What I found, though, is when you get certain and when that doubt comes down, all of the symptoms that seem to be chronic start breaking up and you don't have them. So that's a big deal. That can change a lot of people's lives because it's not just getting rid of acute symptoms and it's not just understanding your emotional world. It's also understanding that you're not stuck with anything, nothing, unless it's caused by a true major medical condition, which most of the diagnoses that people worry about that come to see me are not relevant for that. Often they're even misdiagnosed because what they really are is mind-body issues. So we'll get into that. The third column, oh, actually, sorry, I want to say one more thing about the doubt column. The doubt column's function, the function of the symptoms, isn't distraction. The function of the symptoms in the doubt column is protection. Doubt is basically a psychological defense, and it is put in place because it thinks we're potentially in danger. Don't move that way. Don't do this thing. And it wants to protect us. It's kind of like a helicopter parent. And just like a helicopter parent, it's overprotective, not needed. So we've got to use our thinking and science and logic to bring down that doubt. If you take away that symptom function, that goes too. So now we've got acute symptoms getting erased by recognizing emotion. And I have ways to do that in the emotions column, specific ways. We have seemingly chronic symptoms breaking up and becoming not chronic. It's what I call consistently acute. Always there, but it's acute. It can be made to go away right away if you have the right information. And we're taking away the function. We're saying we don't need this protection. We got it. And that kind of symptom goes away too. The power column recognizes symptom plateaus. That's when you're getting better. You're recognizing a lot of mind-body stuff, but you have a conflict of some kind that keeps you from feeling at peace with yourself. Now, the symptom function in the power column is communication. It wants to tell you about what's going on and what needs to change because it wants you to have a better life. So these symptoms are focused on 3 different functions. And if you take away those functions and you start to have a better relationship with yourself, then the power column symptoms melt away too. The good news is there's only 3 columns and they cover everything you need to know. Now, that doesn't mean you know everything because you're going to have to ask questions. One last thing before we get into the questions for today, which is the resources on my website to get answers. Of course, you can get answers here. This is Q&A just for that. But there are other ways to get sometimes even deeper answers that can take you even further faster. One is my teaching seminars. So one thing you can do, you can go to my website, www.crushingdoubt.org, and you can do this in the middle of the night because these are pre-recorded seminars that I did. And you can order these. And what they do is describe all of mind-body experience. Everything you hear. Why does this person say this and this person say this and this system does this? I needed that to make sense. I needed it all to make sense. So that's a way that you can get your doubt started to come down because it's all that information. It also describes the basic column system in obviously more detail than I just said it. And it gives you things to work with on it. From there, you can come work with me. It's 3 times a week in my groups, my membership groups. It's Mondays, 5 p.m. Eastern, Wednesdays, 12 p.m. Eastern, and Fridays, 2 p.m. Eastern. Same time every day that I listed. And you can come and practice this and implement it. So I know that was a long preamble, but it is a lot to say because every time somebody comes here new, they need that introduction. And you know what? It's good for people who've been here anyway because it's good review that we all need. Okay, now let's get into questions. Let me see who I've got on Instagram. This looks like maybe I'm not live on Instagram. Let me try it now. All right. It turns out we were not live on Instagram. So that preamble was only for the YouTube people. So let me just briefly get people up to speed. We're here to talk about mind-body issues. That's how what goes on in your mind affects your body. I talked about my column system. I did my preamble about it, but if you're new here and you want to know about it, please just let me know. I screwed up and didn't get the video started fast enough. Rita, good to see you here on Instagram. All right. We've got some questions coming in on YouTube and some people saying hello. First, Chris Atwater says, hello all. Hope everything is well with you. Good to see you, Chris. Thanks for being here. Dorisa says, hi, Dan and everyone. Good to see you, Dorisa. All right. We have also got Lynn Slavensky here with us. And Catherine Toomer has joined us. Put pain in the past. I like that. Yes, let's do it. Good to see you here. And Jazz Sack Sailor, good to have you here as well. Okay, let the questions come in and we'll get right to it. Chris Atwater has a question. Really up and down couple of weeks. Received tenure and promotion. Wow, great. Oh, but was informed the same day I needed to file FMLA claim to get accommodations to teach online while struggling. Wow. All right. That is, I can see why it's a mixed bag. Let me start though, Chris. I'm gonna get into the nitty-gritty of what you're struggling with, of course, but I do wanna pause and say this is awesome. You got tenure and promotion. It's well deserved. I know what a talented guy you are, and I'm really happy for you about that. Now, we'll put that aside and we'll celebrate it together. But we'll put it aside so we can get to what you want to work with me on, which is, of course, people don't get a lot of symptoms necessarily. Well, I was going to say people don't get symptoms for things like getting tenure. That's not true. People get symptoms from happy things all the time. So watch out for that. Marley Goldblatt, good to see you here. It's been a while, actually. Great to see you. Please do let me know if you have any questions. Okay. Chris then says, continue to tell HR I have no interest in leave, just interest in accommodations in the short term. I love that you're advocating for yourself and saying it clearly. I am doing my job, just with some of it being online for now. This is great that you're saying it. I sense that there are problems, and let's find out what they are. The letter I received said a bunch of things, but it was nothing along the lines of what I and my director were looking for. Symptoms insanity. I think we are good, but not sure. Let's see. The letter I received said a bunch of things, but it was not along the lines of what okay. So sometimes when you get surprised, it brings up a lot of things. And I think that's what you're saying. Symptoms insanity. When you get hit with something, one of the big eye-opening things about this whole idea of the mind-body experience for me is to see more and more that it really is true, that what goes on in my mind makes a huge difference in what's going on with my symptoms. And the more you see that basic connection, the better. That's what Dr. Sarno ultimately wanted. And he said so. He said at one point, all I wanted is for people to understand there is a strong connection between what goes on in your mind and your body. Well, we're getting that. My system also tells you what to do about it, which is great. But you're seeing that too, Chris. All right, let's continue with the story. Told them I will tough it out if the ramifications are as described, but super unhappy about what HR said. I'm very sorry about that, Chris. Let's see what you said. More doubt as is. I can do this, but don't want to force it either. Thoughts? Okay, so let's start at the beginning here. The place that I begin in a place like this, because what goes on in your mind and what goes on in your feelings affects your body, the first place we need to start is, well, what do you feel about this? And of course, it's not good. You're upset. What I would want to do, though, because you said symptoms insanity, that's an onset or an uptick. So that's an emotions column experience. And we want to start looking at what is the emotion involved. The more pinpointed your experience is, the better off you're going to be in being able to get rid of those symptoms. So let's try to, this is what I would do, Chris, based on the columns. I would look in the emotions column first and say, wait a minute, what is this bringing up in me? And it can be very painful, as you know, when you did your emotions column work, you hated it. I know some people don't mind it at all, and some people find it relieving. Some people find it absolute torture because they're going through some of their worst experiences. And for Chris, he was one of those ones where the emotions column was tough to build, but it's built. So now I want you to look at those themes that you built out, because in the emotions column, you build out themes that are essentially a menu of options to look at and say, what's bothering me in this moment? Because all mind body symptoms are in the moment. What's bothering me at this moment? So obviously we know the topic. The topic is what was in this letter. But what we don't know, or at least what I don't know, is the specifics. What did that mean? I'm going to give you an example, Chris. And you may know tons about this. Feel free to comment and I'll go from there. But it could be that you were kind of reliving an experience of authority figures being tremendously disappointing, or maybe feeling the world's not safe or doesn't function the way it should be. Or it could be that you were angry that there wasn't not only compassion, but even just basic pragmatism. It's like, well, I'm trying to do my best here. Can you help me out? Right? So, and it could be many of these things at once. But what I want you to do is see if you can pinpoint which one really gets it. Because here's the thing. First of all, I want to help you bring down symptoms. But the other thing is, you said, more doubt as is. I can do this, but don't want to force it either. Thoughts. So doubt goes up when symptoms go up. It just naturally happens. Doubt loves that. It loves when the symptoms are there because it can say, Now I'm going to climb in the door and solidify my protection again because you need it. And we got to remind it again, no, I still don't need your help. Okay. So to bring down the doubt in this case, I would say the place to go is first, let's go to those emotions. Let's get you some symptom relief. That would be the first place to go. Then it will bring down the doubt. Now, what happens then? Then we're going to slide over to the power column, because the power column is where you make resolutions about what you're going to do that's going to help you live a more powerful life, live in more alignment with yourself. So, Chris, first we're going to look at emotions in this case. That's going to help bring down doubt. I do want to say one thing, though. If doubt is really high, get to work on the doubt right away. Just go straight to the doubt. Then we'll go over to the emotions column. When doubt is there, you must work there first. But I don't get the sense that it's high enough that I wouldn't work in this other way. I would go towards the emotions because that's where the symptoms are most active. Look there, bring down your doubt. And then we're going to go over to the power column and say, now, wait a minute. How do you want to operate here? And I want to encourage you something, Chris. I of course, don't have the answers to this, and you would know better than me. But I like to ask this question. What is the powerful move right now? And the powerful move can be very surprising, and sometimes it's not even really a move that anybody sees or even hears about. It could be up here. Like you could say, and I actually do this sometimes. I'll say, okay, I don't need to say anything. There's no point in saying anything, but you're in a different category with me now than you were before. And I don't mean that vindictively. I mean it protectively of me and my relationship with me. And it's not about punishing the other person. It is about the fact that I will feel better if I know that I've redrawn boundaries, even in here. Again, I'm not saying that will work for this necessarily, Chris, and because it's a job situation, you've got a particular situation. So that's the other thing is we've got to ask, practically speaking, what can be done here? I think there are things that can be done here. Doubt is going to convince you there's nothing to be done. Your power is going to sink, and then you're like, oh my God, I can't do this. You can do this. And one thing I want to remind you of is we have had success in the past when you use the columns, getting you to a place where you can just manage these things better. But it's going to be really hard to do if you're feeling understandable rage about it, but not getting to really process that. And that's why I want you to go to the emotions column first. Let's start there, Chris, and go from there. As always, though, this is not just for Chris, but for everybody. If I answer your question and it's not to your full satisfaction, that happens all the time in Q&As. But I encourage you, ask the follow-up. And you don't even have to do it here if you don't want to. You can send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.org. But you do need to get your questions answered to your full satisfaction. That's what we need, because otherwise you continue to have that process. Chris, let's start with my first answer. Let me put in one plug, though, for why groups are so great. The group is just, first of all, a great group of people. But the other thing is there's a lot more give and take that can happen in a given moment. Like this discussion with me and Chris, we could have gotten a huge amount of information in like 3 minutes, and I would have many more recommendations. And then he might have questions, and then I might have questions about his questions. And it's the back and forth that not only helps the people who are there so much, who are talking to me, but the people who are observing it as well. So if you want to check it out or you want to find out more about it, just email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org, or you can go to my website if you want to join, www.crushingdoubt.org. Okay, Nelly Alchemy, good to see you here on Instagram. Sorry for the delay in saying hi. I was in the middle of that long answer. But Nelly has a question. I was newly diagnosed with ADHD/OCD. How do I work on these things when it feels like that's the root of my symptoms? Okay, so Nelly, I'm going to give you my answer, but there's a couple things I want to say. First of all, people have a lot of feelings about their diagnoses. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I don't want you to feel that I'm stepping on your toes of your own viewpoint of view. I don't know better than you. Absolutely not. And so I have a lot to learn about you and what this all means and even how you're thinking about it. Some people, when they get that kind of diagnosis, they can feel very relieved because it's describing something that they've experienced their whole life. And they're like, yeah, that really fits. So I'm not going to take that away. Other people are like, that diagnosis is fine, but it doesn't really tell me what to do or it doesn't explain things. So if we were in group, I'd be asking you, what do you feel about that? Because it gives me information to know how to answer. Since I don't have that information, I'm going to give you an answer anyway, but then I want you to follow up and let me know if I either hit the nail on the head or was helpful in the way that you wanted me to be. Okay. So here's the first thing that I would say. I've had a lot of people tell me that when they got these diagnoses, it really was clarifying and relieving. And if that's the case, great. It's helping you feel like you're making more sense to you. A huge part of the mind body process is to get to a place where you make sense and your symptoms make sense. It has to be that. So this may make sense of you. Okay, here's Nellie's follow up. I feel overwhelmed, but the diagnosis term about the diagnosis in term, but hopeful that I can get more help now. Okay, good. So it's helpful, but I'm gonna. This actually was headed in the same direction of where I was going, and that is this. Even though I think this must describe you fairly well in certain ways, I like to think of diagnoses as just ways of describing people that are actually describing a set of symptoms. They themselves are symptoms. So you have mind body symptoms from what you've told me before and what you're referencing now. But I want you to I'd like to help everybody think of their diagnosis as a symptom. Depression is a symptom. Anxiety is a symptom. ADHD is a symptom. Now, that doesn't mean it's not connected to your personality or isn't a real thing or any of that. OCD, the same thing. But it's a way that you have of interacting with yourself that was an adaptive response to the environment. And so it is actually a symptom. It may be a strong symptom. It may be one that has a nice long through line for you. But that can be mastered. I've actually worked with plenty of people on this, getting rid of depression, anxiety, OCD, all kinds of things, and even ADHD. When we start to think about that actually gets activated, it's not just who you are, it gets activated. And activation levels are about symptoms. Okay, Nellie has a follow-up. Also, if I have doubt that I can ever be emotionally well, will that create symptoms just like doubt in general? Hope that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. I'm going to say a couple of things about that. One, you can get better. You might have doubt that you can be emotionally well, but I can help you conquer that doubt if you would like. And I think it is very good to conquer that, obviously, for multiple reasons. But included in that is that as you come to see why there's full hope for you to get better, you just want to have that doubt. You probably need information about why why there is hope. And that's part of what I'm saying about the diagnosis is don't take the diagnosis as something that dooms you. It's just a description of something that's going on for you. And there are ways to change that. Let's start there, Nellie. Let's have you respond to what I said so far, and then I can keep going with that. Although actually you said your first question was, how do I work on these things when it feels like that's the root of my symptoms? The main thing I'm saying is don't think of it as the root of your symptoms. Think of those as some of your main symptoms. The root of your symptoms you're going to find in the columns. They'll describe it. The emotions column will tell you what's happening emotionally. The doubt column, which actually sounds like it is the most active one here, is going to tell you why are these things getting cemented? Why are you staying in fear? I'm not blaming you. I totally understand it. But if I had to guess, you would start in the doubt column work. And we need to attack the idea that you can't get better and why you think you can't get better. That would be the work of the doubt column. This is why it's helpful sometimes for me to remind people the flow of my work is start with doubt. When in doubt, start with doubt. Then you can slide over and start doing emotions column work. And once that's more settled and you feel like you have a good sense of that, then you can get to your relationship with you, the power column. And that's where you're going to find real peace. There is complete hope for you, Nellie. We can help you 100%. Email me if you want more, if you have more questions, or put them here and we'll just keep talking. And if you want to come to group, great. Okay. Or if you want to order the seminars, they're great information. I can give you whatever resources you need. Okay. Nellie says, okay, thank you. I'm going to sign up for group coaching so we can dive into this more. Beautiful. I love that, Nellie. And I'm really looking forward to working with you. I do want to, this is for Nellie, but for everybody. When you come to see me in group, one of the nice things is you're not on your own with it. I'm on the case. It is partly my job then to help you get past these things, to get past the doubt. One of the reasons I do what I do is that I'm giving people what I wished I had had. I had to master the doubt mostly by myself. Dr. Sarno was the biggest help of all. I met with Eric Sherman, a psychologist who trained under him for one session, and I just grilled him with questions. That also really helped. But mostly I had to do it by myself. And that told me I need to be able to answer questions for people. I need to do it here in one format and in the group when we need to do a deeper dive and go faster. Okay, Susie Karen's good to see you here. Mary Pink Health, thank you for joining us as well. Jazz X Sailor, I do see your question. I will get to you in 1 second, but I just wanted to check in on the YouTube people. Lynn Slavensky says, Chris, so sorry to hear about the HR news. Yeah, let me actually just, actually, Chris had a response to that. Thanks, Lynn. This process has caused me more anxiety than anything else, ironically. So that makes a lot of sense, Chris. And I'm not laughing. I'm laughing because it's familiar to me what you're saying. And I want to validate something. These kinds of things are horrible. They're so bad for people's mental health and for their state of well-being, because the very people who are supposed to be taking care of you aren't. And that echoes things from the past. So I want to encourage you, this is not a small deal. Now, when I say that, Chris, I don't mean like, oh, something horrible is actually happening in your real life that's going to be a disaster. I'm saying it from an emotional standpoint. It's a big deal when HR, who's supposed to be looking out for you, is not and seems like they're against you. It can make you feel really unsafe. There are things we can do about it, though, to tweak that. So let's keep working towards it, okay? Let me see. I'm behind on some questions. Okay, I'm going to get to, Tracy Mom 8, good to see you here. Thank you for joining on Instagram. Please do let me know if you have questions. As people come in midstream, especially if you're new here, ask me anything. We're talking about mind-body issues and my system of how to get rid of the symptoms. Okay, Jazz X Sailor says, hi, Dr. Dan. I had pretty severe ankle injury that has sidelined me from surfing and running. I can sort of accept that due to my age and have found trail biking works okay. I have old age fear. Okay, so this is another time where if we were in group, I could ask lots of questions back and forth and get more background. And we can do that, Jazz X Sailor. In fact, I do know some things about you from you coming here other times. But one thing I want to do for each of you as you ask questions is to let you know, how am I thinking about this from a columns perspective? Because I'm trying to orient you to these columns and how they can help you. Well, when I hear any question, questions are a form of doubt. There are 4 forms of doubt: fear, confusion, lack of certainty, and questions. Questions are the best kind of doubt because they're the most workable. And by the way, I should make a distinction. There are A questions, which are questions that are meant to get you further and understand, and B questions, which are really just voicing fear. They're not even really questions. Jazz Sack Sailor has asked an A question, which is great because we can work with that. B questions, I got to note, that question is going to lead you down a bad path. Let's convert that into an A question. The questions that I hear behind the statements are essentially, can I get better? Am I going to be able to run again? Do I need to just accept this? Is this just an old age thing? By the way, I'm rattling these off, Jazz Sack Sailor, but they may not be your questions. I'm just giving examples of what I imagine you're thinking. And as I think about the columns, there's doubt here. So what did I say about doubt? If there's doubt, you start there. So I would want to go in and start to look at those doubts. You're having all kinds of experiences and thoughts about old age. And you're certainly not alone with that. It's a very, very common source of mind-body symptoms and a source of worry for people in general. But I am quite certain that if we do some work, you can get that ankle better and you can get back to surfing and running. And I don't actually care how old you are. I mean, I guess if you told me you are 95 years old, I might be like, okay, I don't know, let's check with your doctor. But you're not that. I know you're not. So we should do some more talking even here about how we can start to bring that doubt down. Now, in the doubt column, there are 3 tasks in the doubt column. There's tasks in each column, and I keep them really simple, mainly because they are simple. What there is that needs to be done isn't actually that complicated, but people just don't know it, and they need to have it, explained, and often have somebody working with them on it. So I can do that. But in the doubt column, you observe, articulate, and counter a doubt. What does this mean? To observe a doubt is to call it into question. So right here, we have a doubt that maybe you're not calling into question. I'm not saying you're not, are or not, and I'm also not blaming you for anything. I totally get it. But I wonder, are you calling into question the idea that maybe you could get back to surfing? could get back to running, that even with aging, you're not going to be doomed to this. That would be observing a doubt. It doesn't mean you get rid of it. It doesn't mean you counter it. You might not even fully put it into words, but at least you're calling it into question. Articulating is just what it sounds like. It's putting it into words. That would be the next step. And once we do that, we can start to counter it. So this is what I'm seeing in your question, Jazz Sailor, or your observation, is that there's doubt in there. And you could use some help putting that to rest. Makes perfect sense to me. I say we do it. Okay, let's see. We have Jane Smith in YouTube. Okay. Hi, Dr. Dan and Dorisa. Hope you had better moments this week. A couple weeks ago, Dorisa was having a rough time, but it seems to be doing better. I hope that has continued. And Chris, congrats. Yes, that's 10 years, big deal. And hi, everyone. Okay. Jane then says, Dr. Dan might have to do the replay in the car again, but my cough improved dramatically this week. Okay, fantastic. So last week, Jane was saying that she had this cough that was kind of lingering. And one of the things that I love about my system is because it is simple and kind of elegantly set up. And I'm actually not saying that to try to compliment myself. I'm saying it to give you guys confidence in what the columns are, because I use them and they're great. They work better for me than anything else, including 20 years of therapy, not even close to what I get from the columns. So what we did is we simply analyzed the symptom through the columns, and it told us what was going on because the columns organize it so that you can see, oh, it's a doubt issue, or it's a power issue, or it's an emotions column issue. And then you know what to do because those columns give you different tasks about things to do. So we did that. And Jane, actually, it's interesting. I do this work so much that it flows into each other. And I can't remember if we mostly brought down some doubt or if we got you over to the power column and did some power column work. What I'm recalling is that we started with getting rid of some doubt, and then we started to get you back into power. But the key variable, most of all, is that we got you more understanding. And I remember you saying, yes, okay, that made sense. A lot of it can be fear-based. We get very afraid of these things. And once that calms down, things get better. Your cough improved dramatically. This is the kind of thing I hear about all the time, and I love it. I love it every time because people come to me and they're suffering, and I tell them about this system, and then they utilize it, and they get better fast. Now, I don't want you to worry if that's not happening for you. It also is the case that sometimes you get caught on a snag of some kind. Well, the columns are for that also, for getting you unsnagged. But Jane, this sounds like it was a great success. That builds your confidence. That brings doubt down. Because if you bring down one doubt, you start to bring them all down. Your doubt has been coming down steadily over time. You have your spikes at certain moments, but this process is definitely doing the right thing. So I'm excited about that. Okay. Be Gone is here with us. Bunny, it is good to see you. Hi, Dan. Had a dip in my belief after a follow-up eye doctor appointment, but am back to pretty much full belief in mind body. My only wish is that my dry eye was only perceptual without the physical changes. Then, hold on, Bunny said one other thing. Let me just get this whole thing in here. Walking around knowing my eyeballs have no lubrication is very uncomfortable, but I'm going to keep doing my best to let go and feel secure in my belief in a psychological cause. Okay, I'm going to get to that in the second part in a second. But let's jump back to the start here. Many people, when they go to visit doctors, they get certain information that knocks them backwards. And one of the things that I recommend to people, which is much easier when you understand the columns and you feel really solidified in this system and in just mind-body understanding in general, is what I call putting on your doubt armor. What do I mean by that? I mean that you prepare for interactions. You know these doctors are going to tell you a bunch of nonsense. They are. They're going to tell you things that are worrisome. They're going to tell you things that are structural. Now, again, doctors are very important for certain things. They're very important for life or death stuff. I find it's really, really useful to have an annual physical that I go and just get my vitals checked and make sure there's nothing I need to be working on or thinking about or taking care of. But that's the main thing that they're good for, is they're a backstop for that. Now, they also understand lots of medical issues. If you got a true medical issue, they're going to be able to help. But when they're not helping and you're having something linger, or they're telling you some scary diagnosis, but there's no way to get better, That all points in the direction of mind body. So, Bunny, I know we've talked about this, and I'm glad you did a great job. It sounds like fighting through the doubt and getting back to your belief. So that's great. But you are also articulating a doubt. This is part of what we do in the doubt column. And you are saying, I wish that my dry eye was only perceptual without the physical changes. So essentially, what you are saying, if I have this correct, is because there are physical changes, it's harder for me to believe this is truly mind body and thus that it will get better. So many ways to deal with that. I'm going to read the second part as it fits with that. Walking around knowing my eyeballs have no lubrication is very uncomfortable. Okay, one thing I want to encourage each of you, pay attention to the language that you use, because the language, there's nothing wrong with this, Bunny, by the way, and no criticism whatsoever. This is all meant to be supportive. But we all use language that actually subtly attacks ourselves in certain ways or sets up a doubt. So you're saying my eyeballs have no lubrication, right? Now I understand they are feeling dry and may actually be dry. But when you say no lubrication, that sounds incredibly uncomfortable. And then it ramps up the doubt. Here's what I want you to think instead. There's not a lot of lubrication there, but if I make these changes, it's going to start to flow again. I'm not stuck in this. You have dry eyes right now, Bunny, and it is physical. I understand that. But it's because the mind-body process is making a physical change. Think about it this way. When you cry, it's because you got sad, and then that translated into actual tears rolling down your face. Well, you've basically got the opposite, which is actually what dry eyes are all about in the mind-body world. It's about the fact that you aren't empathizing with yourself enough yet. And I say that with full empathy for you, not a criticism at all, totally supporting, meant to be supportive anyway, because power column work is going to help you get to a place where you can actually empathize with yourself. And then actually you'll get more in touch with those tears. And guess what's going to happen? It is physically going to change. So you might have very little lubrication right now, but you could have lubrication right now, today. I'm not saying that is going to happen, but I want to help you feel that it could happen, because there's no reason it can't. Why? Because the mind is controlling this physical difference. And if it's controlling that physical difference and we get control of what's going on in the mind, we can change that. It could happen right now. Again, I'm not saying it will happen. It doesn't usually happen in like a lightning bolt like that. But changing the belief that, you know what, this isn't about me not having lubrication or being stuck in this horrible experience. It is about the fact that I got to turn that faucet back on. I gotta get my body access to a different way of functioning again by understanding the columns. If we do that, this is all going to change. It does sound uncomfortable, but I actually think even the discomfort, even with less lubrication, I wouldn't say no, because you do have some, it's really going to help you to change that perspective. And you're doing great work already, but let's continue it. Okay. Gabri Mars, thank you for joining us here on Instagram. Please do let me know if you have any questions. I know you're coming in the middle. We're talking about mind-body issues and my system of how to deal with them. All right. Catherine, I will be right with you. You have two things, and I'm going to take something from YouTube first. Okay, Chris Atwater says, thanks, Dan. Your advice is always good. I'm glad to hear it, Chris. My powerful move is always crushing shit. I showed up for my case study team, even when I felt like crap, and won. You're always kicking ass. All we have to do, and I don't say all like it's so easy, but it simplifies things. All we have to do is master these symptoms enough that they're not bothering you so much. As soon as that's happening, you're living a great life. You know, I know you feel that way other than the symptoms, but boy, we just have to get those symptoms under control. They're headed in that direction. This is not about you not being able to do your job and completely crushing shit, as you said. That's great. And, you know, it is a powerful move in multiple ways. It not only feels good to do well, but it basically shows them, okay, you're not going to value me? Look what you're not valuing. Look at it. That's very powerful, because you are now putting yourself in a position of being able to say, listen, you're not valuing me, and that is a problem for you. Not so much for me. I mean, yes, it is for you, but not as much as it actually is for them. So I hate that they're doing that to you, but I love that you found one powerful move. Another powerful move would be to recognize these people have a problem, or even our society has a problem. One of my action steps are changed thinking that you're going to apply once you recognize the problem within the columns. One of my favorite action steps is to put blame where it belongs. These are people who are just doing a bad job. I don't even have to know the situation, Chris, to know that their inflexibility and their stance is ridiculous. They could just work with you. They could say, "Hey, we need more of this," or "Can we do it this way?" They're not being cooperative, so they've already got three strikes against them in my mind as to whether they're doing a good job. They're not, and putting the blame where it belongs can feel good because it gets it off of us. There's so many ways we sometimes think, "Oh, maybe it's me," so I don't want that for you. Okay, massive national conference. Hold on a second. What is this? So proud of them. It also validates the work I'm doing. Oh, awesome. So this was that case study team. Being able to produce at a high level and helping others means the world to me. This is awesome. I mean, Chris, think about this also. I know that letter from HR spiked things in an emotions column sort of way. But the other thing that may be causing a kind of more activated symptom feeling and doubt going up is you're becoming powerful. You just got tenure. You're kicking ass and taking names. That's the kind of thing where doubt comes in and says, no, I got to protect you from that also. Don't get too powerful. Doubt gets worried about us being too powerful. I want you to give yourself permission to go ahead and enjoy it. Just enjoy it. I know that's not easier said than done, but let's keep working at it. You're still making good progress. Now, Chris Atwater said, "Thanks, Jane. Wish I could still be in group now. We do miss you, Chris." One thing that I do know is, the semester is going to come to an end and your schedule is going to lighten up. And then, I'm here and we are here. I should say we, because it is important that I'm here, but the group itself plays a big role. They're very supportive and you get to hear stories that you can relate to. And meanwhile, you get to see them on a process that generally speaking is moving in a very positive direction. So we miss you. We miss you, Chris. Okay. Chris said, "I think you will love it, Nelly, about group." I certainly agree, and I'm excited to work with you, Nelly, and I'm excited to work with you, Chris, whenever you can return. Okay, then he says, "Thanks, Jane. Improvement rocks." Yes, it does. Okay. Teresa says, "Thanks for asking, Jane. I'm doing much better. Still have a few issues in some moments that I'm not happy with." Well, Teresa, I think so many people can relate to you. One thing I want to remind everybody is we're moment-to-moment beings. I, too, have all kinds of moments that I don't actually feel great about. But one thing I love about the columns. The reality is I love so many things about these columns because they really help, not just you, but me. And one of the things that helps is I return to them each time and they bring me out of a lot of those bad moments because I understand them and I understand what I need. So keep up the good work, Teresa. You're doing great. Okay. Let's see. All right. Catherine Toomer. "Hi, Dr. Dan. I'm getting better at remembering in the moment that my pattern of panic-ridden, intrusive thoughts, demanding action on my part are really just mind-body symptoms." This actually fits with Nelly, with what we were talking about OCD. Catherine has started to use the columns against OCD, and that's what she's saying. Recognizing these intrusive thoughts are actually mind-body symptoms. I think that means they are not to be taken seriously at face value. Exactly. Because when we think of them as at face value, they are what they are. And then we have to respond to them. If we think of them as symptoms in the columns framework, we don't even have to take them seriously. We can just recognize them as symptoms, put them in their categories, and do something about it. In fact, she says, any thought at all that comes in this way should not be addressed or acted upon until the panic anxiety calms, even if it seems urgent. Make sense? It makes perfect sense. That's exactly how I'd want you to handle it, Catherine. Another way of putting this is that these intrusive thoughts are all doubts. And we should not pay any attention to any doubt. The whole idea about crushing doubt is to catch doubts, not believe it. No, I'm not going there, right? So you're doing great. Now, she says some of those thoughts don't even come back when the panic anxiety passes. And that tells you something. If those thoughts were actually the things that mattered and they needed answering, they would stay. But instead, they're connected to the panic and anxiety. And if you don't give into it, don't go along with the doubt, You don't even need to go there. It's amazing how many times these problems we think we need to address, we don't, because they're only symptoms. Great observations, Catherine, and great work. And I'm so happy for you. We'll keep at it, but it's really, it just means a lot to me that we've identified the fact that these were symptoms and you started to address them as symptoms and it changed things. I just had this happen with somebody I was talking with about um, oversleeping. And I said to her, I was like, you know what? It didn't never occurred to me, but we could think of this as a symptom. As soon as we started thinking of it as a symptom, it changed what was going on. All right. Karen Isaacs, good to see you here. Karen says, when I'm on Zoom calls for business, I get dizzy when the person on the other end is moving around. I've started speaking up to tell the person to please sit still. Wonder though if it's a TMS thing. Great question. Now you have more. I also can't stand background noise. I tell people to stop clanking. It's either misophonia or misophonia. I don't remember how it's pronounced, but or just rude. But I'm better at speaking up with no fear of how I'll come across. So, Karen, I'm sure this will not surprise you, but yeah, you're getting better at self-care. And I know you may want to hone how you do it because you've sometimes said that you worry about how it comes across. But the thing is, it's good that you're thinking through, how can I say this thing that I need? Because you're not making it up. These things are bothersome to you. And why should you have to sit through them? I do think that there is some degree to which we need to care about each other as a community. We can all make mistakes. I've done it as well, where we thought we weren't muted and we're making a lot of noise, or we're moving around and not realizing it's bothering people. But I think it's important that we recognize, all these people in these group meetings, they've got an experience. And if you have Karen, I think this will fit with your understanding of things as we've understood you, but it's almost like you end up feeling like they're not thinking about you, which they aren't. They should be, but they're not. And that could then echo something from the past and spike a symptom. Just like we're talking about these other things with Catherine and a couple of other people, that's a symptom. And so misophonia is when you have sensitivity to noise. But that sensitivity isn't just like your ear is sensitive. Your psychology is feeling sensitive, and it's because people are always talking. People are always talking at you, and they're not listening to you. And they're saying things you probably don't like because they have so little understanding of certain things that you do. This is a very common symptom, by the way, of trauma experience, is to have those symptoms of feeling like the sound is too much. I cannot take it. And literally people cannot tolerate it. I have it sometimes. It is a symptom I have where I'm just like, I cannot stand that anymore. But it always relates to, Karen, the feeling, I shouldn't say always, but most of the time, it relates to the feeling that the other person is not keeping me in mind. And that's something that I feel mad about. And it's good to process that. And so on top of that, it's good to get it addressed if you need to. This is good. This is all processing, and I'm glad you're doing that. Thanks for sharing that with the Q&A. Okay, Chris Atwater says to Bunny, I had a lot of trouble with my eyes. Doctor said it was essentially shingles of the eye, got steroids. However, when I thought about it, the symptom moved. Not a cure, but still better. But listen, when the symptom moves, that's on the way to a cure, because we don't want symptoms to stay stuck, because that leads to more doubt. Doubt loves that. When it's on the move, doubt can't do a whole lot, because what's it going to argue? That you still have an eye issue when you're not even having an eye symptom? The arguments become weaker and weaker. So we want to get it on the move. And that's what's going to happen as you think about things in terms of symptoms. Okay, one last comment, and we're going to finish up for tonight. Well, Teresa said thank you. I think that was actually to somebody else, but maybe it was to me anyway. But I'm glad you're here with us, Teresa, and keep up the good work. Okay, Chris then says, thanks as always, Dan, and all of you too. It helps to hear other people's stories. So, Chris, we're so glad you're here. And while you're not in group, come here. Every week, I'm here. And it really helps to have something every week, whether it's group or here. It's a community that even I find helpful to convene every single week so we can talk about these things, because the whole world doesn't agree with us on this yet. They're behind. They have not caught up with these ideas. And that's one of the reasons I can't wait to get my book out, is so that we can start this discussion with everybody. In the meantime, I want to thank you all. It is a fantastic community. Thank you for your questions. I hope that my answers were helpful. Please do email me as needed, dan@crushingdoubt.org. You can also go to my website, www.crushingdoubt.org. If you wanted to sign up for the seminars or you want to join the groups and come see me, and they're available every week. So, and they're cost effective. So there's help. I can help you all, and I look forward to doing so. Please keep the questions coming, and I look forward to seeing you same time next week. It's Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye, guys.